afraid to speak when I was just a lad. Me father gave me nose a tweak and told me I was bad. But then one day I learned a word and see me aching nose. The biggest word you ever heard, then this is how it goes. Backward, which is Doches Alley, XP Alley, Califragilisticus, but that's taking it a bit too far, don't you think? So when the cat has got your tongue, there you need to say, just stop this word and you got a lot to say. For example? Yes. One night I said to my boy, and now he boy's my husband. Oh, and a lovely thing he is too.
So good. Wasn't that great? I love these guys. Let's give them one more big round of applause. Good job, guys. Good job. Good job. All right. It's time to go. Yep, that way. I always say don't perform with children or adults or animals. They always upstage you. But I'm glad because today is all about them. Today is Kaleo Kids Day. For those of you that aren't familiar, we have a program here called Kaleo Kids, which means invitation. And they are inviting you to go on a journey with them today, something that they've been working on for months. Dozens and dozens of volunteers across multiple campuses in partnership with public schools working together to bring this message to you today. So I hope it's received well. I can't think of a better way to start the service, right? Well, my name is Josh Eisenhart. I'm one of the guest speakers here at Kensington. When Chris Zarbaugh wants to take a vacation or have a little bit of time off, I get the opportunity to fill the spot, and he leaves some big shoes, but it's always a privilege when I get the chance to share. Before we get going into the rest of where we're going today, I wanted to share with you some really cool stuff going on here at our campus. Do we have any women here with us today? Let me hear you. Anyone? Yeah, there it is, right? Yes. We have a retreat specifically designed for you called Smash. Smash happens in just a couple weeks. As a matter of fact, it's the weekend after Mother's Day. So, guys, good gift, just saying. This is a chance for you to get away from your husbands or the other men in your lives and just go be with other women and experience fun and adventure and connection and connection with God. And so I've met, and been friends with a ton of people that have gone to this thing, and they all come back, every single one of them, and say it was a life-transforming experience. And so I really encourage you to do that. I think there's still some spots available for it, but it usually sells out every year. So if you're thinking about it, if you've kind of been on the fence about it, don't be anymore. Go and get involved in that. So that's one thing that's going on. Another thing that I think is really cool is when summer hits, we find that we have a really great opportunity for people to jump in to serve in our children's ministry that maybe wouldn't have time in their schedules at any other time. I know that school years are just absolutely chaotic and there's always something going on, but in the summertime, sometimes, you find yourself a little bit more space. We would love for you to consider being a part of what happens in our kids' ministry. We've had people that have been serving for years and years and years because one time over one summer, they gave it a shot and they just couldn't stop. So in your programs or when you were walking in today, you probably got one of these cards. If you wouldn't mind filling this thing out, putting it in the offering pouches when they go by later, we'll contact you, give you all the information you need. I promise you already have everything you need to do this, all right? We'll give you all the little pieces that may be missing, but you're already ready for this, all right? You were probably born ready. We'd love to have you to be a part of it. A couple other things that are going on. As you see this performance today and you see what these kids have done, you might find yourself saying, man, I wish my kid could be involved in that. The good news is that they can. We actually have a Kaleo Kids camp coming up that is going to be absolutely incredible. Would love for you to consider sending your kids to this. I'm thinking about sending my daughter, as a matter of fact. I know she's just got a little performance bug in her, and I want her to explore that and to see what that looks like. And if you share that idea, take a look at the screens real quick.
Hey, are you you a kid like me? A kid who loves to dance around, sing at the top of your lungs, entertain everyone around you? Then listen up. You've got to join us for Spark Camp, a crazy fun performing arts camp where we get to dance and sing, all while being inspired to use our talent to share God's love. Each day, we rotate through fast-paced classes in music, dance, and drama, as well as a large group time where we learn about God's love. And at the end, we put on an amazing live concert performance to show off all we have learned. Don't miss your chance to make new friends, grow in confidence, and experience the joy of being loved by Jesus. Space is limited, so sign up today.
So yeah, you see that's happening at the Orion campus August 6th through 9th. I would highly recommend going ahead and signing up for that first and soon, because I know that they said limited spacing. Things like this typically do sell out, and so I would love for you to have your kids be involved in it. Let's get some of our folks out there. It would be great. One last little thing I want to share with you, and this is for those of you, how many of you are proud owners of an adolescent? You say, I have one of those living in my house. That animal is crazy. I don't know what to do with it. It's okay. You're not alone. We have support groups just for that. But all that to say, there's a really, really cool experience coming up for them this summer. It's called a teen serve camp, student serve camp. I was close. Very close. I got the point across, I think. But it's happening in Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll be trucking them down there and back. For high school, it's June 16th through the 21st. Middle school, June 23rd through the 28th. But this is an amazing opportunity for your students to learn what it looks like to live out the messages and the things they're learning in youth group or they're learning from you and their families. I did youth ministry for over 12 years, primarily working with middle schoolers. And while I love summer camps and really fun activities and the cool entertaining aspect that you can have, gathering a group of students together, there is nothing that I did in all the 12 years of ministry that I did with young people that impacted them as much as going and serving people. Because we can have the tendency to see spirituality as a consumer event. Come, serve me. But when we turn it around and we give them the opportunity to serve others, they're going to be going into communities of people that have been disenfranchised or under-resourced or underserved. They're going to be building community. They're going to be restoring relationships. They're going to be working together with the community to bring the love of Christ in a very powerful way. And so I'm excited for that for these students. I hope your student gets a chance to go. If your kid's been bugging you about it, let me just tell you, this is a win-win for everybody, all right? You're going to love who they are when they come back, and you're going to get that week off, all right? So, everything's great. It's a good thing. Go ahead and sign up for that today as well. Well, our kids have been preparing for months, as I said. We already saw our little ones coming out here and starting things off with a bang. The rest of these students are ready. We had over, I think, close to 75 kids that are involved in this thing, which is, that's a miracle, frankly, that they're even doing the same motions, let alone doing what I've seen them do already twice. It's a very powerful experience. And here's what I want to encourage you to do. The tendency we can have when we see kids come on the stage is we go, oh, I don't think they're so cute. I got a good picture. Take your pictures. Think they're cute. Enjoy that. But also recognize that the reason these students have done this isn't just so they can get up and show their performing acumen and all the cool things that they have. They're doing this because they have a message they want to share with you, a message they've been learning in their own hearts and that they've learned to an extent that they can now share with you. And sometimes the innocence of a child is where the most profound and important lessons come from that can have the potential to transform our lives. So while they're getting their last little things prepared and getting ready to come out to you, I'd love to encourage you to stand up to your feet, shake your neighbor's hand, and tell them your favorite children's TV show.
Welcome to Kaleo's 2019 performance. We're so glad you could make it.
Whoa, look at this. Wow, that's so fancy. Ew, what's that?
What are you doing?
Mom, is that you? Who's there?
Nora, where did you go? I came back with snacks and you were gone.
Asia, I hear you, but I can't see you. Did you say something about snacks?
One, dare, 2, 3. Wait, freeze! You know what? I should have done that way earlier. Parents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents out there, is this how you feel watching your kids play video games? Because this is just plain strange. I mean, I remember back when video games were just something I used to pass the time on my parents' phone or iPad when we were at lunch or dinner with their friends. Now look at it. It's a full-on virtual experience. See what I did there? All right, let's get back to it. Unfreeze.
Wait a minute, did you just freeze us?
Yeah, come on now.
Yes, sorry, but if you haven't noticed, I'm quite in the middle of something here.
Oh.
So, I was trying to enlighten these fine people on a certain video game called Heroes of Ghee.
Wait, what? That's the game I was just playing. It's so fun. And the Huggas are so real life. Like, it's amazing. And,
The crystals. Make sure you forgot to harvest those crystals.
Okay, you're saying something about a Hugga, and you're saying something about a crystal, right?
Right.
Yes, so the game is set in Gnog, a land full of troll-like creatures called Huggas. Well, they're kind of like trolls, but not the colorful kind. The grumpy, lives in caves kind.
Right, and in order to win the game, you have to help them harvest the crystals, because the prophecy says they lose everything if they don't get the crystals in time.
Wow, I'm telling you, these video games are getting to be so complex. Whatever happened to a good old-fashioned game of tag?
What's that?
Okay, never mind. So, the Huggas need the crystals in order to survive.
Right.
All right, and according to my notes, there is someone called a Unhugga who was banished by the king of the Huggas, the Poet King. And the Unhugga is the only one who knows how to harvest those crystals.
Yes, the Poet King and a Hugga have a history. They don't like each other.
So as a hero of Gnog, you must save them all from total annihilation. Let's go. I want some snacks.
Wait, but guys, wait. Well, there you have it, folks. Welcome to Kaleo's 2019 performance, Heroes of Ghee, A Journey to Forgiveness.
Leo, look out, the edge of the cliff. I see it. You just take care of the giant glacier while I get the crystals. You get it. I'm trying to fight off these Euromyths. They can fly. Oh no. Mara, you're letting them through.
Game over.
Leo, why couldn't you get the best shot? I mean, it was right there next to you. All glory, no guts, huh? This is all your fault. This isn't going to go well if we can't work together.
I was trying, but you...
Okay, I get it. We're both mad, but we need to figure this out.
Right, sorry.
Me too. Try again?
Begin your journey, heroes.
Oh, great. It restarted us by the trails.
A little help here?
Mara, you're about to lose the game for us.
Oh, I'm losing the game? You're blaming me?
Who else should I blame?
Hey, okay, can you quit pushing me?
I didn't push you. Don't push me.
What's going on?
We are the Huggas from Ghee shore. We lost our crystals, now we're crystal poor. Will you help us if you don't, we could lose everything.
Will you help us? You gotta help us out.
We're running out of time, and darkness follows close behind. We gotta find them fast. There's only one who knows where they're at. So, we have drawn you in by our great power. And now you must do. Could you please maintain some dignity here?
Sorry, boss. It's at that line, we all say doo-doo.
Just once, I'd like this to go properly. Is that too much to ask? And now you must do. Oh, forget it. You must do as we say or else.
Right. Who are you?
We are the Huggas of Ghee, and I am their poet kid.
Oh, cool. We're just playing a game called Heroes of Ghee.
Yeah, back in our living room. And now we're here. What? I'm sorry, there seems to be some mistake.
Not sure if you've noticed, but we're kids.
Human kids.
That's the whole point. We could never do what I mean. What I mean is, you are prisoners now.
Prisoners!
And if you ever want to return back home, you will do as we say.
And what exactly do you want us to do?
The centenary jubilee is seen on the horizon. The crystals in the ground have now begun to ripen. Our life force, our strength, our joy, and our best weapon. 100 years we've waited, and now the harvest beckons. That was a good one. Did you get it?
So the crystals are ready to be harvested, and I'm not sure what the rest of that meant.
So, what does this have to do with us?
It was in the prophecy. Unhugga Forstelline, Huggas Begonorian, Metode Mathalian, Braga Bismore Throwian, Halen Beckerman, Forslino Gekawek, Galwek Gallon Gublishian.
Well, gee, that clears things up.
Let me explain. Our crystals are dying, and only one Hugga knows how to harvest them. He was our scribe until, one day filled with anger, he tried to take the ground for himself. And so I banished him. And now he's known as the Unhugga. But Unhugga took the instructions to the harvest with him, dooming us all to darkness. For 67 years we have waited and grieved, lamented and bemoaned and bewailed and broiled.
Broiled? Doesn't that mean cooking?
I thought it was an academic term. Scratch that last one from the record. Anyways, we need you, heroes, here to assist in our hour of need.
Well, I've got bad news for you, buddy. We're not really heroes.
Yeah, we were just playing a video game. We don't have any special powers or anything.
Oh, well, that's a bummer. Okay, Huggas, get rid of them.
No, wait.
Get back, stop that. We'll do it.
Yeah, we'll be heroes.
Ooh, goody, glad to hear it.
Right, so we have to find the Unhugga, bring him back to you. Seems simple enough.
And how do we find him?
Through the dark night forest you must go, then cross the mountains cold with snow. Alas, in cave rooms deep below, follow the slimy worms that glow.
So, just like the game?
But hear this. If you don't return before sunrise on the day of the centenary jubilee, 3 days hence, the crystals will rot, the sun will not rise, and we will be doomed to darkness forever.
Begin your journey, heroes.
This is a dark forest.
Not dark, you could say.
I think I see a path. This way. Ah, bats, get off. Ah.
Just flap your arms. This way.
Oh, gross. Now there's spiders?
Come on, Mark, give me your hand.
Snowballs, look out. It's the glacier.
We're supposed to sneak first. Come on, alongside the cliff.
Don't look down. Oh, no.
Again.
Oh, great. We have to do this all over again.
Quit complaining.
Yes, we made it.
Proceed to the next level.
Now this is creepy.
Yeah. Look, a glowworm.
Which way did it go?
There it is.
I think there's two of them.
It went that way.
No, it went that way.
Game over.
What even is this place?
And Mom thinks my room is messy.
Who goes there?
It is I, us, we,
We're the heroes of the prophecy.
Wah! Guess I haven't talked in a while. Who are you and why are you two in my cave?
oh, well, we're kids, human kids, and we were just playing this video game, pretend, not real. And then we heard this noise, and then that became real, and then you guys are real. Or we pretend.
The Huggas sent us.
Ah, I see.
You do?
Did you see their fearless leader, the Poet King? Don't tell me she said I was evil and sent you guys to save the day. Listen, none of this was my fault. You gotta know there's two sides to every story. The king and I were really close. I practically lived under her nose. I used to jot down every word. It seems so absurd. It was my job. At first it wasn't bad. All the beautiful stories that made us glad. But the king just got worse. Couldn't hold a verse. And I tried and tried to warn you. But nobody heard a word. So now I write whatever I want, and I keep it all in my cave. I'll never forget, and I just keep it that way.
So many parties that he was declined. He remembered when it hurt.
it just keeps getting worse. So many feasts with so much food, no gluten-free options that he could choose. So he writes it down, Ghee thinks about it when he sleeps. Yeah, he sees the worst of everybody. He'd rather stay in here.
He can write whatever he wants and keep it all here in his cave. He'll never forget, and he likes to keep it that way. He'll write whatever he wants and keep it all here in his cave. He'll never forget, and he likes to keep it that way.
See, I like to keep it that way. Just me inside my cave.
He likes to keep it that way.
So let me get this straight. You left, now you live in a hole with your scroll, writing down everything bad that's ever happened to you.
Yep, and I'm never going back.
Well, we tried. I know a lost cause and I said one. Let's go, Mara.
Wait, what about the darkness? Broga Bismore Throwian?
Wait, what did you just say?
The Broga Bismore. Am I saying it wrong?
No, you're saying it right, but where did you hear that from?
From the prophecy.
Yeah, that said the heroes would come?
Broga Bismore Brilliant. Oh no.
Oh, what?
She found my scroll, didn't she? That's why you guys said you were the heroes. That wasn't a prophecy. That was just something I wrote. For fun.
So there's no prophecy.
Nope.
And no special power to harvest?
Nada.
And were you really banished for trying to steal the crown?
Not even close. I left. That poor king took me for granted one too many times. I'll never forgive her. My own sister didn't even care enough.
Your sister? The king's your sister?
Yep, my big, bossy sister. Now she's messed up everything. Have they even started harvesting the crystals?
No.
No crystals. Not good. Not good at all.
You need to help the Huggas harvest the crystals, or else they're going to keep us as prisoners and we're never going to get back home.
I can't go back. You didn't know what it was like following her around, writing down everything she said. I got zero respect.
Listen, I know what it's like to I know what it's like to be mad at someone.
And I know what it's like to have a bossy sister.
Leo, please, we fight all the time, Leo and I. But at the end of the day, he's my brother, and I love him.
Aw, I love you too, Mara.
What I'm trying to say is you're the one stuck here all alone just because you won't forgive her.
Never thought of it that way.
Do you really want to spend the rest of your life writing down everything bad that's ever happened to you?
The Huggas need you.
We all need you.
Well, what are you standing there for? Don't we have a deadline of darkness and doom?
Let's go save the harvest.
Ooh, the crystals.
Okay. I got it. What if we did a wild dance to break open the ground? Well, that didn't work. Okay. What if we got shovels and tried to dig for the crystals? Nah.
The dawn approaches near at hand, the birds begin their chatter, and lo, the heroes have not returned to save us from disaster. Hug us all now gather near, for doom has come upon us. Hug your neighbors, take their hands, as day is lost to darkness. Let us forge a new life apart, and seek a brighter pasture.
Hello, sister.
Brother?
What were you gonna rhyme with pasture?
I was thinking maybe plaster, or her master, but that is we have been studying the prophecy.
Prophecy? Still bungling things, aren't you?
Don't you start that now. You don't get to criticize. You left us.
Oh,
and you
you're
had
right,
so
I
much
left.
to
If I
say,
didn't
didn't
have
you?
to
Taking me for
come back
granted
and
all
our
the time,
society
never
would
trusting
seize
me
their
to handle
darkness.
things.
For the last 87 years,
I've been fine without you.
And where are all your crystals?
Look, on the third mile of prophecy, it says...
That isn't a prophecy. It's all imaginary.
How do you know?
Because I wrote it.
Well, if that changes things. It was a good story. I didn't know you wrote poetry too.
Well, I have, for years.
So, do we still need the crystals?
Of course we do. If we don't have the crystals, then our society would cease to darkness and doom.
I knew they were important.
Yo, shush, this isn't your moment.
But see, there's no secrets to harvesting. You just... And we're gonna need it to divide up into two groups. Harvesters and sorters. To divide them by shape and size and... Oh, I'm doing it again. Aren't I? Mm-hmm. Telling you all what to do. Sorry.
It's okay. Well, you guys heard them. Harvest. Come on, let's get moving. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I never meant to take you for granted.
I forgive you.
You do?
Yeah, I actually do. And that felt good. Do you forgive me for not trusting you and being a know-it-all?
Of course I forgive you. You know, I could use your help.
Okay, but no more following you around and writing everything you say. That was the worst.
Right, none of that. They call us the Huggas. We'll probably hug ya. We found the crystals. It's time to sing along.
We're better together. Whatever weather.
We can't do it alone, so won't you sing along? We're better together. Forgiving each other. Oh, we're sisters and brothers. All these worlds to discover. When we forgive each other. You're better together. When there's love to discover. When we forgive each other.
Guys, Unhugga, King,
Yes?
what about us?
Well, you can be harvesters or sorters. I don't really care.
No, we mean, how do we get back home?
Oh, right. I have no idea.
What? You mean we're stuck here?
Of course not. Just turn off all your gear and you'll be back in your living room. None of this was real. We're just imaginary video game characters.
So this was all in our heads.
Yep, that's the best part. Good luck, you guys.
Winner.
Wow. That was... wow.
You know what? I think Mom was right. These video games are just getting way too realistic.
Yeah. I'm gonna go play outside, I think.
Yeah, me too.
Man, wasn't that just so great? Can we give them one more big round of applause? I was so impressed with that. For all you parents that are telling your kids not to play video games, now you know better. I'm just kidding. But no, I love how we can sit in an audience together and we can marvel at all the great accomplishments of these children and all the work that they put into creating a spectacular performance. And yet it lets our guard down to expose us to truths that are really deep, that are really profound, and frankly, that are kind of difficult to deal with a lot of the time, such as the topic of forgiveness. Because that's really what this whole thing was about. As you watched this story and you saw how forgiveness was breaking relationships or unforgiveness was breaking relationships, how holding grudges and harboring resentment cause people to miss out on opportunities and great things in their lives. And that's what we're going to talk about today, or continue talking about, I guess I should say, in my portion of this thing. Before we do that, though, we are going to go ahead and pause in our service right now and receive our offering. For those of you that are maybe newer to Kensington, this is your first time here, maybe you're just here because somebody really short invited you, and we're glad that you made it. We just want to say this is the only part of the service that we didn't really design specifically for you. We want this whole service to be a gift for you. But for those of us that give to Kensington because we're part of the vision and we get what's going on here, we want to thank you in advance for giving, whether you do it through the pouches that are going through your row or if you do it as a lot of, or most of our people do, frankly, as one of those options online. You can do that through our website, through the texting. It takes about 10 seconds on the app. We're just really, really grateful because these types of things and the events that we have here happen because people before you chose to give generously and be a part of the strategic mission of Kensington and to the broader sense, the mission that God is doing around the world. So thank you for participating and being involved in that portion of what God is doing in this place. So I noticed a similarity between what was happening in this story and what I've discovered in my own life. I don't know if you've discovered this or not, but I think everybody in this room, in some portion of their life or maybe a huge portion of their life, has the tendency to have what I'm going to call a you owe me cave. A you owe me cave. Anybody relating to that? Basically what I mean is when someone does something wrong to us, when we experience an offense, when somebody, betrays us or is dishonest toward us or is hurtful toward us or does something inconsiderate or just absolutely unacceptable, our tendency is to take that and go, no, I'm going to put that right here in my cave. I'm going to hold on to that. And the next time that person approaches me or has any kind of conversation with me or asks me for a favor or anything, hold on, I'll be right back. Let's deal with this first, all right? We'll dump this out. You handle that first. And once you deal with that, then we can do something together. Anybody relate to that? You'd say, yeah, you know what? I probably have a you owe me cave if I'm honest, right? I mean, I think really there's a few different categories that come about with this, of different areas in our lives that we put things into the you owe me cave. And the first one is pretty simple. It's pretty obvious. It's the you owe me. This is when someone else out there does something to you. This is when someone lies. This is when someone cheats, when someone steals, when someone hurts, when someone, takes advantage of or exploits us, when someone, just overlooks us in a really, really difficult or damaging way. Those things create hurt in us. And what I've realized is it's kind of like a debt, isn't it? It's like they did something that took something from us, whether it took our dignity, whether it took our self-respect or our sense of identity, whether it just took away an opportunity or an ability to know the truth, whether, whatever the case was, they did something. And in our mind, we go, you owe me. And until that debt is paid, until it's squared away, until you've done the things on your part that you need to do, I can't forgive you. So you've got work to do, you've got things to do, but meanwhile, I'm going to be back here in my cave. And when you're ready to apologize, you're ready to make things right, or you're ready to pay me back, that's when we'll be able to have a conversation again. But until then, I'll be in my cave. Now, I think there's another group of people, and I think all of us have portions of all of these in our lives, that also happens, and that's this one. God owes me. This one's a little more complicated because sometimes it masquerades as the others, but frankly, there are things that happen in our lives that are completely unexplainable by someone else doing something wrong. A tragedy takes place, a disaster strikes, something happens that just seems like the universe is conspiring against you. And you look around and you say, there's nobody for me to blame, it must be God. And we find ourselves turning our anger, turning our resentment and our bitterness, all the things that come from unforgiveness, onto the Lord. And we say, you know what, God, I don't know what the deal is. I come to church every Sunday, I'm involved in the kids ministry, I'm doing all this great stuff. Why would you let this happen to me? Why would this be something that happens? Why did that person have to die? Why did they have to leave? Why did I have to get sick? What happened that I deserved this? And we find ourselves getting so angry about that. And we go, you know what, God? Until you deal with the stuff in my cave, I got no time for you. And frankly, there's a lot of people that aren't here today because at some point in their life that has occurred. And maybe you are here today. Maybe it was because of an invitation of a little person or because you just felt like God was calling you here. But you have unreconciled things with the Lord based off of difficulties or hardships or disasters that have struck in your life. I know I do, and I know I have. The third one is kind of a little bit interesting because this is even more complicated than the first two, and it's this one. I owe me. I owe me. This is when we have our own set of standards and morals and values that we live by, and we betray our own selves. This is when we say, I'm never going to do that again, and then we go and do that again. I'll never say that to her again, and then you say, I'll never lose my temper, and then you do. It's all those things that you do that fail your own self. And what's so crazy about it is that cave, we put all the you owe me's, we put all the God owes me's, and then we take all the things we've done to ourselves and we put those in the cave too. And we hold on to all this resentment and bitterness to our own selves, which turns inward into self-destructive tendencies, turns inward into self-loathing, turns inward into identity crisis, and it turns into this really gunky, nasty mess inside of us. If we're not careful, what we find ourselves doing is we keep piling more stuff into this cave, and then we find that we just pile it right in front of the entrance, and what happens is now we're just living inside of the cave. And the truth is, the cave is comfortable, isn't it? I mean, it's predictable. You can understand it. It's protective. Because, if I forgive somebody, doesn't that open me up to being hurt by that person again? I don't want to feel that ever again. And so as long as I live in my cave, as long as I protect myself, as long as I am strong in my resilience and my resolution to not ever deal with any of those people or situations or things again, I will be protected from that pain. This is the thing I've realized, and maybe you've realized this too. And I'll tell you, this is not something that I prepared like last week on my way here. This is something that I've been living for the past year of my life, and I'll explain a little bit more later. This is stuff that is hard to wrestle with and stuff that you have to deal with because there's several problems with the you owe me cave. And they're big problems, and they're things that we have to recognize when it comes to our own inability to forgive those who have wronged us or those who have hurt us. There's the first problem that I would point out is this. People don't know what's in your cave. This one's infuriating. Because if you've ever experienced this before, you know how angering it is. Have you ever seen someone that years ago or even months ago or even hours ago did something that enraged you or made you feel like you had experienced a personal loss, like they'd taken something from you that you wanted back? And then you go to that person, you're like, so, are we going to talk about this? And they're like, talk about what? You're like, is it obvious? And they're like, you seem angry. You're like, you don't know? And they're like, what are you talking about? You're like, oh, this makes you so angry. Because to you, it was everything. To you, it was a personal humiliation. To you, they stole something from you. And to them, it was Thursday. They don't really thinking about what it was or what happened. They don't know what's in there. I remember when I was a little bit younger, I was in 6th grade. I remember I was in a youth group, and one of the youth volunteers thought it would be a really funny thing to give me a wedgie. Which, if you don't know what a wedgie is, just Google it. But I'm running past him, and I don't know what it was. I don't even remember doing anything to this guy, but I remember he stopped me, he grabbed me by my underwear, and he picked me up off the ground. Which I don't know if that's an atomic wedgie or if it's when it goes over your head, but I don't remember. But I just remember my underwear ripped, and everybody laughed, and there was a great fun time for everybody but me. For me, I was a 6th grade boy, and that was absolutely humiliating. I remember I didn't go back to church for weeks after that because I just didn't want to face this guy ever again. Years later, it was about 10, 15 years later, I happened to be back at that same church. I wasn't working there anymore. I ended up working there later on in life, but I wasn't in that church anymore. I was actually living in Michigan at the time, but I traveled back down to Georgia to visit family, and I just happened to go to the same church just to kind of see, my old stomping grounds and be around people, and you never would have guessed who was sitting right over there. I'm worshiping, having a good time. I'm like, man, this is a great service. Oh my gosh. There he is. And I'll tell you, it was the craziest thing. I hadn't thought about it for years. But the second I saw that dude inside my brain, I went, I'm meeting that dude in the parking lot after this. We're squaring this away right now. It's just like the fury built up in me. It's so crazy. Because I didn't even know what was in my cave. It was like it was in there and I didn't know it. And it was just waiting. And as soon as I saw him, something inside of my brain said, hold a minute. Let's get this out and deal with it. And I'm like, oh no, here it is. I got to deal with this thing now. And what's funny is I did end up talking to him, not in the parking lot because he looked a lot smaller from the distance. But when I did get up to him, I said, hey man, do you remember me? He goes, am I supposed to? I'm like, well, yeah, because I remember you. And I told him, in 6th grade, you gave me a wedgie. He goes, I did? I'm like, yeah, you did. He's like, huh. I bet it was funny. I'm like, no, it wasn't funny. As a matter, and I went through the whole thing. He's like, huh, okay, well, sorry. And he walks away. I just remember thinking, oh my gosh. This has been sitting in my cave for years, and you don't even remember it. It didn't even faze you. This affected me, and it didn't even faze you. But that's the problem, is that things that can be so devastating to you and to me, those who did it often don't even know that they did it. And so it sits in your cave, blocking you from such amazing opportunities and relationships, and they don't even know they did it. Another problem that we run into with this is that people don't agree about what should be in the cave. This one's even more infuriating. When you go and say, hey, we're going to talk about this. And like, yeah, we'll talk about what? And you tell them like, oh, yeah. What's the problem? Like, what's the problem? And you go and explain how big a deal it is. Like, you're overreacting. Chill out. It's not a big deal. And you're like, oh, really? Tell me more about how I should be feeling. It's just like one of those things that you're like, how do you know what it did to me? How do you know how it felt to me? How do you know? And then it's like, calm down. Which, by the way, let me just give you a little side piece of advice. Husbands, wives, there's never an appropriate time to use that term. Unless you are like drowning in an ocean, there's sharks around you, maybe calmness will help. But outside of that, I've never in my professional or personal career ever once experienced this, where someone's worked up and angry and I go, calm down. They go, okay. Doesn't happen. That's usually the words you say right before you start running, because someone's throwing things. Those words don't work. But we use them. Hey, calm down. It's not a big deal. Get over it. Chill. And it's like, I can't do that because what you did hurt me in a place that you won't even acknowledge you hurt me in. But that's the truth too, isn't it? Anybody ever experienced that? Where the affront to you wasn't nearly a big deal to them? They don't even agree that it's a big deal? It's a problem because it's still in your cave. Even they won't even acknowledge that what they did was all that wrong. Another issue that we run into with the cave is this, that what's been taken can't always be returned. And this one's really hard for us to come to grips with because that's what we want, right? We want justice. We want the balance to be restored. We want Thanos to snap. We want this thing to get back to the balance that it's supposed to be. But the truth is, most of the stuff that ever gets taken from us can't be given back. Nobody can give you back your childhood. Nobody can give you back your innocence. Nobody can give you back the years that you lost or the relationship that was broken or the things that are left undone. So much of what occurs in us because of the things that people do to us, there is no repayment. Even if they came to you and said, yes, I remember doing it, and yes, I see it as the huge deal that you think it is, there's still no way for them to overcome that and say, you know what, now we're square. Now it's even. I fixed it. And we try. That's where revenge comes from. We go, you know what? If you could just feel what I felt, then we can both take those two things and they'll cancel each other out. But if you've ever experienced that, it doesn't work that way. Ever since we were little, we learned that two wrongs don't make a right. They just don't. And what you end up with is two people with stuff in their caves instead of just you. In misery, it may love company, but it doesn't appreciate it. Another big issue that we run into, this is probably the biggest of all, is that the rent is high in the cave. It is. Because see, what you pay to stay in the cave, you pay in relationships. Because you find yourself with the opportunity to love again, or the opportunity to have a friendship again, or the opportunity to connect with someone, and you find yourself looking at that person and going, I'd like to, but I'm kind of stuck here. I've got this whole thing, all this mountain of stuff people have done to me, and I'm just afraid that if I trust you, all that stuff's going to come back and haunt me. So thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to live in my cave. This is where I'm safe. This is where I'm secure. This is where I know all the things, and it's comfortable for me. But you miss out on the relationships, and you miss out on opportunities. There's so many great opportunities that people miss out on because of the fear, because of the self-loathing, because of the lack of identity, because of the lack of courage, because of the bad things that have happened to us, that others have done to us, that we feel like God has done to us, or that we've done to ourselves. And so what we have to do is we have to figure out a way to deal with this on the inside. We have to understand what forgiveness looks like, what it requires, and truly what this transaction is all about. Because here's what I believe. I believe that whether the person that hurt you is living or dead, whether the person that hurt you will ever acknowledge what they did, whether the person that hurt you will ever admit to the amplitude or the intensity of their error on your part, I believe that forgiveness can be dealt with right where you're sitting before you even leave this auditorium today. Because what I believe is the Bible is very clear and teaches us that it's a very peculiar thing, this idea of forgiveness. But it's absolutely mission critical we figure it out. As a matter of fact, Paul wrote about this in his letter to the Colossians. See, Paul was a disciple of Jesus. He kind of came around a little late in the game. As a matter of fact, Jesus had to come back and make a special trip just for him because he was so opposed to Christianity, opposed to God and Jesus and all that stuff. He loved God, didn't really get Jesus. Jesus showed back up. He was blind for 3 days. I mean, it was a really cool story. Acts 7, 8, somewhere around that neighborhood. You should check it out. It's really good. But the thing is, he becomes on fire for God, and he's teaching all these people about who Jesus is in all the different areas of his known world. And he would leave, and then he would write letters to them, kind of re-explaining or more amplifying on the things that he had already taught them in person. And this letter is one that we have and that we're able to look at and that we're able to understand, and it's a trustworthy source to understand what the earliest Christians, the ones closest to Jesus, understood about what he was teaching. And so in Colossians chapter 3, you begin to see this long diatribe that Paul's going through, explaining what it looks like to live as Christ, to live as someone who's a Christ follower, someone who has trusted Jesus as their Savior and has allowed him to forgive them, and what it looks like to live that out. So I want to share this with you. It's in Colossians chapter 3. It says, therefore, which if you want to know what therefore means, it means everything else I said before this. Here's the summary. So if you'd like to know what that therefore means, it's your homework. Go back, read Colossians chapter 3, starting in verse 1. I'm not going to explain it now. But he says, therefore, as God's chosen people, so if you're in this thing, you're a part of us, holy and dearly beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Now we're going to leave this one up for a second because I want to kind of teach through this. I don't know about you, but if I was to ask everyone in here to write up a description of me, my hope would be that somewhere on that list would be some of these words, right? How many of you would agree with that? You'd say, yeah, I'd kind of like to be known as somebody that's compassionate, that's kind, that's humble, that's gentle, that's patient. Those are all great things. Frankly, they're not things that describe a lot of us, including myself at times. But I want that. And I may try really hard to get that, but trying doesn't get us there. Trusting does. We have to trust the Holy Spirit. We have to trust Jesus in us to bring this about through us. And the way he does that, he goes and connects it right here at the rest of the verse. He says, bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Now notice on this, he doesn't say anything about once they apologize, once they make it right, once they saw, doesn't say anything about that. It just says you got to forgive if this is what you want flowing through you. If what you desire is to be patient, to be kind, to be loving, to be all these pieces that were laid out, then forgiveness is a piece of that puzzle. There's another verse, I'm not going to share it with you on the screens, but it talks about Jesus' teaching. He says, listen, if you got a problem with your neighbor and you're on your way to church, stop going to church and go deal with your neighbor. Then come back to church. And you go, why? Why would he do that? Because he realizes, just like we realize, if we really think about it, that our disconnection from humans affects our connectedness to God. Those two things are very, very closely connected, and we have to live in peace if we want to live in peace. And so the verse finishes out with this. It says, forgive as the Lord forgave you, which, by the way, this word as, this is like in like manner, to the same degree as. Forgive in the same manner the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. When Jesus was asked, what's the most important thing for us to know? He said, love your Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two things, everything else falls. This whole idea of love, which is what we all live to experience and to live out in our lives. This whole idea of peace and patience and kindness and gentleness and all these fruits of the Spirit that we're supposed to experience, they're tied to our ability to forgive. They're tied to our ability to overcome this resentment and this bitterness and let it go. And this is what I believe about forgiveness, and this is what I think you really need to catch as the nugget of the day. Forgiveness is truly all about canceling the debt. Because if you got a you owe me cave, that's like having a general ledger where everyone owes you something that's ever hurt you. Forgiveness is not about going to that person and fixing things. It's not about hearing something from someone that releases you from the obligation of the burden. It's simply about you looking at the books and going, and throwing it away. And living your life in such a way that you can look at those who have hurt you, who have damaged you, who have stolen from you, and with truth in your heart and love in your soul say, you don't owe me anything. I wish you nothing but the best. And we say to ourselves, well, that doesn't sound reasonable at all, because there's a lot of problems with that, right? That's like letting them get away with it. That's like just, pretending like it didn't happen. How am I ever supposed to forget? How does that even work? That doesn't make any sense. But we have to figure it out. Paul says it again in Romans chapter 13:8. He says this is to a church in Rome that he's writing. He says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. This is the same thing Jesus was saying. We have to understand how this forgiveness works. And so while it looks like we're letting someone off the hook, or it looks like we're just, overlooking something that was substantial or even catastrophic in our own lives, that's not what it's about. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the person you're forgiving. It has everything to do with you releasing the debt so that you might live your life with greater strength, greater kindness, greater everything flowing through you. And this is something I like to share because I think it's really important. When we look at forgiveness, many of us confuse it with other things, and that's why we struggle with forgiveness. This might be worth the whole price of admission right here, this little piece of portion, because this is something I found has freed people, understanding this. And it's understanding what forgiveness is not. Here's a few things that forgiveness is not. First thing, forgiveness is not condoning. Forgiveness is not failing to see the actions as wrong or in need of forgiveness. Many times we go, I can't forgive them because it just lets them off the hook like it didn't even happen, like it wasn't even a problem. No, forgiveness doesn't have to do with that. Forgiveness has to do with something entirely different. Another thing that it's not excusing. When you say, you're not holding the offender responsible for their actions, you're not releasing someone from responsibility. You're simply releasing them from your feeling and obligation that they need to pay you back. It's just acknowledging and knowing that broken people do broken things and break other things. And sometimes it's you. Another thing that it's not is it's not pardoning. It's not like you're writing a bill that says you're free, because that's something an authority or a governor does. That's not something that we even have the power to do. Another thing that it's not is it's not forgetting. And this one, I get people all the time, they're like, well, we always use it together. Forgive and forget, forgive and forget, forgive and forget. Here's the problem with that. Forgiveness is a choice I have. Forgetting is not. Because there's things that have happened to me in my life that I will remember to the day I die, vividly and with great color and detail. I can't fix that. It's not like I can just go, forget. Oh, what was I supposed to forget? I don't remember. It doesn't work that way. It sticks. It's indelible. It's a stain a lot of times in our lives. But we do have the power to forgive. We have the power to release. And they're not the same thing. And then lastly, it's not reconciling. And there again, people are like, hey, I got to be able to be in a relationship with this person again. I got to make peace with them so that I can fix things. I'm sorry, just to be completely honest, there are people in life you were meant to live and love from a distance. There's people that have great dysfunction and great damage in their life, and if you let them back in, they will just do it again. Forgiveness isn't saying that all debts are forgiven and therefore I trust you again. No, trust is something that's built over years and lost in seconds. Whereas forgiveness is something that may have happened over years but can be forgiven in a second. See, forgiveness is a choice that you have the opportunity to make completely independent of what anyone else ever does. You see, forgiveness at the end of the day is a deliberate choice to release the debt and live without the burden of it. It is you freeing yourself from a cage of your own making. It's a cliche that people say, but it's true. That unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, that's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Because it doesn't work. You're just hurting you. And not only hurting you, you're hurting your opportunities to further move and engage freely in the world. We have to figure out a way to deal with this. Because otherwise it will deteriorate our very souls. As I said earlier, this isn't something that I just came up with and decided to throw together for today. This is something I've been living for the last year of my life. Not to go into too many details, just to maintain, honor and respect for all parties involved, but over this last year, I went through a divorce. It's not something I ever expected to happen. It's not something I ever wanted to happen, but it was something that had to happen. And I'll tell you something, there is nothing like a marriage breaking up to show you all the stuff that's in your cave that you forgot was there, that was harboring, there's just nastiness keeping you from being the person you're supposed to be. And there's nothing like a marriage breaking up to show you all the ways that you have contributed to the stuff in someone else's cave. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, with truth in my heart and life, that when we choose to employ these tactics, when we choose to see forgiveness as what it is, the release of oneself, it doesn't matter about the other party. It doesn't matter about anyone else in the relationship. It's you freeing yourself up for the Holy Spirit to re-engage and push out wonderful and beautiful things through you. And this is something I've wrestled with. This is something I've had to dog down. I've had to work through. And in doing so, I've found such unreal joy and peace and kindness and love. I've never been closer to God than I have been through this experience, because God gets more mileage out of adversity than anything else. I am living my best life right now because of the forgiveness that I was able to offer and the forgiveness I was able to seek. And it makes all the difference in the world. I'm going to invite the Kaleo Kids to come out and do one final song with you. This song that they're going to do is actually one that was written by a 12-year-old at our Lake Orion campus. So out of the mouths of babes again, it's incredible to see. But while they're coming out, I want to share with you just a small snippet. This might be something that would really be useful for you as well. I think for many of us in here, if we're honest with ourselves, we don't just have things in our cave. We have things that we've helped get into other people's caves. And we need to help kind of grease the skids to bring about forgiveness for someone else. There was a book written not too long ago by a guy named Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages. You've probably heard of that one. But he wrote another book called The 5 Languages of Apology. And these are actually taken from that. This is just my own summary of it. But there's a few things you can do. You can't control whether or not someone forgives you. And frankly, it's not your responsibility to get someone to forgive you. But there's some things that you can do if you found that you need to seek forgiveness from someone else that work. The first thing is you need to say it. Say, I'm sorry. You'd be amazed at how incredibly healing those words can be to someone, just to simply say, I'm sorry. It's important. Another piece that you can do is to own it. Take responsibility for what you did. And let me just give you a little tip on this one. If you're in the middle of saying an I'm sorry, or you're taking responsibility for something, and at some point in that sentence you mention the word but, just understand that anything you said before that doesn't count. All right, if you're like, hey, I'm really, really sorry, but I'm really, really sorry, it didn't count. You say, hey, you know what, this is really totally my fault, but no, that didn't mean anything. I'm telling you, your butt is killing you, all right? Don't use it. Take that in context of how I meant it. The truth is, we have to be willing to take responsibility for what we've done. And then the third one is fix it. If there's something you can do that will help make amends, do it. If by making amends you'll cause more harm, then don't. But if you can, extend that. The fourth is change it. If there's a behavior that you have, something that you're practicing, a way that you speak that is hurting or offending or causing harm in other people's lives, change that behavior. Because I don't know about you, but nothing says I'm sorry to me like a changed behavior. I tell my kids that constantly because I don't want to hear I'm sorry again. I want to see something different. That's what says I'm sorry to me. And then lastly, and this maybe is the most important, just ask for it. Oftentimes, people are just waiting for you to say, will you forgive me? For them to have the opportunity to extend that forgiveness. Those are 5 things you could do very easily that would allow you to help someone else be freed from the bondage of their own making. But at the end of the day, if we can't forgive, it will affect our ability to love. It will affect our ability to be in relationship. It will affect our ability to take in opportunities. So as this last song is being sung by our incredible team of unbelievable students, I hope that you will hear the words of it from the mouth of a 12-year-old, but it will penetrate through the outer shell you might be wearing and allow God to speak something into your heart today. Take it away, guys.
Such a long time. between us now. Oh, one little drop of water at a time contributed to the flood. I'm drowning. Oh, what miraculous thing could we ever hope to bring our drifting islands back together? Forgiveness meant heart breaks into holes, and forgiveness turns hatred into hope. Forgiveness, there's no telling how far it'll go to fix anything. Oh, forgiveness is the key. Forgiveness is the key. Forgiveness is you and me, we've been friends for an eternity. Oh, how could we let something break it now? Now, I guess our candle got slipped out, and I feel it's all my fault. I'm lost and dark. Oh, what miraculous thing could we ever hope to bring our drifting islands back together? Forgiveness meant heart breaks into holes, and forgiveness turns hatred into hope. Forgiveness, there's no telling how far it'll go to fix anything. Oh, forgiveness is the key. And even through the heartbreaks, forgiveness it still stands. And even through the crossroads, forgiveness is my friend. Forgiveness is my friend. Forgiveness is my friend. Forgiveness is still stands. Will you forgive me?
Good job. Unbelievable. So good. After a song like that, now you just have to forgive, all right? That's just all there is case. They've said it. You've heard it. You can't say no to these eyes. So just take care of it. Well, guys, I just want to say once again, thank you so much for being a part of this, for supporting these guys in their endeavor to explore all the talents and gifts God has given them to make a difference. And I hope that today God has spoke to your heart and he said something. I hope that today has given you the tools you need and the courage you need to break out of that cave and live a free life unencumbered by the debts that we hold from other people. Some of you maybe are sitting here today and you're saying, man, I wish there was a small, tangible way for me both to support Kaleo Kids and get one of those banging t-shirts that I've been seeing on you all day. Well, guess what? You're in luck. We have them on sale out in the back. If you want to support what's going on here, all the proceeds of that go to Kaleo Kids. Also, you get a really cool t-shirt out of the deal, so it's a win-win. We'd love for you to do that, and I just want to invite you back next week as well. Next week is Mother's Day. We have a very, very special service planned for you. I guarantee you your mom is going to feel absolutely honored and cherished here. It does not substitute a gift, though, all right? So you got to still do that, but this will be an additional gift to them, and so we hope that you'll come. And I got one last thing I'll say, and this is just for one or two people in this audience. Somebody in here, I believe it, is a medical professional. Either you're a doctor or a nurse, and you have always wanted to go on a missions trip, and you've been waiting for a sign. This is your sign. I'm talking to you. If you are that person and you say, man, I really want to go. We got a trip leaving not too long from now. As a matter of fact, they're meeting right after this service, and we're in need of some medical professionals to go. So if you were looking for a sign, you just got it. Now you just have to decide do you obey the Lord or not. It's up to you, all right? Then you'll have other stuff to deal with in your cave. So other than that, we thank you for being here. We can't wait to see you next week. God bless you.